What are the biggest keys that you need to implement this year to scale your real estate wholesaling business to the high 6 and 7 figures over the next 12 months? One of the biggest gaps that we see in most wholesalers' businesses when we start to peel back the layers is predictability. Because most wholesalers never track their KPIs, thus they're never able to really dial in to produce predictable results over time. Now KPIs, standing for key point indicators, are literally the heartbeat of a wholesaler's business. So why do more wholesalers not keep track of these KPIs on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis? Well, most of them just don't know that it's that important. So I want to dial in with this video where we can talk about pulling out and analyzing some of these gaps. And 2, how can we create a system and a standard process so that we can start to fill the bucket to keep more leads, to generate more revenue, and close more deals over the next 12 months. So number one thing we want to look at is, what are the highest converting lists if we're doing outbound marketing? Now for us, we love absentee owners out of state, right? So absentee owners that have a tax mailing address that's out of state. When we look at the numbers across the board, it's one of the highest converting lists. That and probably probate. But that's a story for another module. Now lists, when you can really dial in and look at the top converting lists, right? And figure out, based on the amount of calls made, the amount of leads that have come through this certain list lead to this amount of contracts, right? Now after the list, you also want to be very clear with your marketing piece. Your marketing piece matters, regardless if you're doing direct mail, if you're doing digital marketing, AdWords, PPC, or even the message that you're speaking with when a motivated seller answers the phone on a cold call, right? The marketing piece and your marketing message are super important. And sometimes the smallest little tweak in your mindset and how you approach that marketing process can change everything. We also want to track productivity as far as the lead qualifying team. So the lead qualifiers being our cold callers, our SMS agents, people that are really operating in the back end, we want to see, based on the amount of calls made, how many leads do they pull out each and every day? Because the numbers really matter. You might have one lead qualifier who pulls 2 leads out of every 1,000 records, or another lead qualifier might pull 10 to 20 leads out of that same list. Let's take a quick look over at the screen so we can look at some of these KPIs in motion for our in-house cold calling team. Now, one thing that you could see over the month of January is that the amount of calls made is pretty consistent across the board. Obviously, week 5 is less because there's probably only 3 days in that, right? But if you look at week 1, for 2,088 calls made, there's a total of 19 leads. 2,006 calls, total of 15 leads. We had a little bit more calls at 2,500, where we generated 27 leads in week 3. But the crazy thing is, when you really dial in and look at the math, it all lines up, right? So when you break down this equation, for every 1,000 calls made, we're looking at an estimate of 7 to 10 leads per 1,000 calls, right? That's roughly a 1% conversion rate for every record that you call. Now, if we look at this next circle metric, and you can see the percentage of calls per agent, right? And you can tell the agents that are in the seat making more calls because they have more hours. Well, let's look at the conversion rate for some of these agents. So you can see Alfred, for the amount of calls made, generates more calls by a percentile basis than Cham does, who's making more calls in a week, right? Mary, who's making just about the same amount of calls as Alfred, is getting close but not quite there. It's because Alfred's a beast. Alfred's a killer, and we know that when we have him in that seat and when we have him cold calling sellers and qualifying leads, he's going to bring in the highest amount of leads. So we focus on that strong suit, right? We keep Alfred in that seat. We keep him on the phone so we can talk to more people. And at the end of the day, the most important thing in this business is talking to more people. If you can seek to have quality conversations with more people, you're going to consistently close more deals and more contracts in every single month that you're operating this business.